before this life.
Her name is Layla, 4 years old. Dark curls, curious eyes that seem older than her years. She lives with her parents in a modest apartment in Beirut, Lebanon, a city built upon layers of ancient civilizations. Her mother, Nadia, first noticed something unusual when Layla was barely 3. The child would stand at their balcony, staring toward the Mediterranean, and whisper words that made no sense. "The harbor was bigger then," Layla said one evening. "The ships came from everywhere. Roman ships, Greek ships, ships from the islands." Nadia smiled, assuming her daughter had seen something on television. But Layla shook her head with surprising intensity. "Not those ships, Mama. The old ships. When I lived by the real harbor, when the water was different." The statements continued, always unprompted, always specific. "We made the purple, Mama. The purple that kings wanted. From the shells, thousands of shells. The smell was terrible, but the color was like sunset in water." Nadia and her husband Karim exchanged worried glances. Their daughter had never been to a museum. They didn't own books about ancient history. Their television rarely left children's channels. Where was this coming from? One afternoon, Layla was drawing at the kitchen table. Nadia glanced over and felt her breath catch. The child had sketched an elaborate harbor with distinctive curved walls, a long causeway connecting an island to the mainland, and hundreds of tiny ships. "What is this, Habibti?" Nadia asked, her voice careful. "My city," Layla said simply. "Tyre, when it was the greatest city in the world, when I was Zara, and my father traded with everyone. Tyre, the ancient Phoenician city." Nadia felt a chill despite the warm afternoon. "My father's warehouse was near the southern port," Layla continued, still drawing. "We had cedar from the mountains, glass from Sidon, and the purple dye, always the purple dye. That's what made us rich." She looked up at her mother with those ancient eyes. "I wasn't always your daughter, Mama. Before, I was someone else, and I remember." Nadia began writing down everything Layla said. The details accumulated like artifacts from an archaeological dig. The child described massive stone walls encircling the city. 2 harbors, one for war, one for trade. A temple to Melkart that touched the sky. Streets paved with stone. Markets filled with goods from 3 continents. She spoke of the murex snails harvested from the sea, crushed by the thousands to produce a single ounce of Tyrian purple dye. She described the process with technical precision, impossible for a 4-year-old. "You break the shell carefully," Layla explained, demonstrating with her hands. "Take the small gland. It's yellow at first, but when the sun touches it, it changes. Green, then purple. The smell makes your eyes water. But the color, nothing else in the world looks like that." Karim, a high school teacher with a degree in regional history, felt his skepticism crumbling. These weren't the vague statements of a child's imagination. They were specific, verifiable. He began researching. Late into the night, while Layla slept, he combed through archaeological reports, historical texts, and academic papers about ancient Tyre. Everything matched. The 2-harbor system confirmed by underwater archaeology. The causeway, built by Alexander the Great, exactly as Layla described its position. The purple dye industry, Tyre's legendary monopoly on Tyrian purple, derived from murex shellfish, precisely as his daughter had explained. But the detail that stopped his heart came from a 1,990 seconds archaeological survey. Layla had drawn her harbor map dozens of times. Always the same layout. Always with a distinctive curved structure on the southern end, which she called Father's Warehouse District. Karim found a digitized archaeological map of ancient Tyre's southern harbor. The structure Layla had drawn, from memory, matched precisely a foundation pattern discovered only 15 years ago, invisible from the surface, buried under centuries of sediment. never published in popular media. A 4-year-old child had accurately mapped an archaeological site she'd never visited, depicting structures that hadn't stood for over 2,000 years. His hands trembled as he showed Nadia the comparison. "How?" Nadia whispered. Layla, overhearing from the hallway, padded into the room in her pajamas. "Because I lived there, Baba," she said quietly. "I walked those streets. I watched the ships. I was Zara, daughter of Hanno the merchant. And I remember." Karim made a decision that night. He contacted Dr. Mariam Khalil, a colleague at the American University of Beirut, who specialized in consciousness studies and had published papers on anomalous memory cases. Within a week, Dr. Khalil sat in their living room, recording equipment ready, asking gentle questions while Layla colored. The investigation had begun. Dr. Khalil spent 3 months documenting Layla's statements. She followed the protocols established by researchers studying children's past life memories, careful questioning, independent verification, cross-referencing with historical and archaeological records. Layla spoke without prompting about daily life in Phoenician Tyre, around 300 BCE. The historical window narrowed with each detail. She described the Greek man who conquered the city, unmistakably Alexander the Great's siege, in 332 BCE. "I was young when he came," Layla said. "Maybe 14. We watched from the walls as he built his road across the water. Month after month. We thought the sea would protect us forever. But he brought the land to us." The siege of Tyre lasted 7 months. Alexander built a causeway from the mainland to the island city. Historical records confirmed every element of Layla's account, but she spoke mostly of life after the siege, of the city rebuilding under Hellenistic rule, of her father's trade expanding to include Roman merchants, of her own life, marriage, children, decades of watching ships come and go from the harbor she loved. Dr. Khalil brought photographs from archaeological excavations, ancient jewelry, coins, pottery, fragments of purple dyed fabric preserved in a museum. Layla's reaction to the purple cloth stopped everyone in the room. She reached toward the photograph with reverent fingers, tears streaming down her 4-year-old face. "That's it," she whispered. "That's the real color. The color that meant everything to us. The color of empire. The color of home." She had never cried discussing her memories before. But seeing that fragment of dyed fabric authenticated to the Phoenician period, preserved by unique soil conditions, broke something open in her. "I miss the smell of the sea," Layla said softly. "The way it mixed with the dye works. I miss my father's laugh. I miss watching the sun set over the harbor, counting the ships. I was old when I died. My children had children. I sat by the water until the end. I wasn't afraid. I'd had a good life, a full life." Dr. Khalil documented behavioral patterns consistent with genuine memory rather than fantasy. Layla showed no desire to dramatize or embellish. She spoke matter-of-factly, the way one might describe yesterday's events. She expressed grief not for a traumatic death, but for the simple loss of a life well lived, ended naturally by time. The researcher cross-referenced Layla's statements with historical records. The child had described trade routes confirmed by archaeological evidence. She'd named goods cedar, glasswork, textiles matching Phoenician export records. She'd described religious practices validated by ancient texts. But the most compelling evidence came unexpectedly. Dr. Khalil brought Layla to the Tyre archaeological site, the ancient ruins, the Roman hippodrome, the remnants of the once great harbor. As they walked through the southern excavation area, Layla suddenly stopped. She pointed to a section of foundation stones, barely visible through centuries of accumulation. "That's where we lived," she said with absolute certainty. "Father's house was there. 3 stories, windows facing the sea. I remember." The archaeologist supervising the site checked his records. The foundation pattern indicated a large residential structure dated to the Hellenistic period, exactly when Layla claimed to have lived. The house of a wealthy merchant. In the district, Layla had drawn from memory, facing the sea. The evidence accumulated like layers of sediment, each adding weight to what seemed impossible. Dr. Khalil documented 23 specific verifiable claims Layla made about ancient Tyre. 21 matched archaeological or historical records. 2 couldn't be verified but didn't contradict known evidence. For a 4-year-old with no exposure to ancient history, the statistical probability approached 0. But beyond data and verification, there were moments that defied easy categorization. Layla would sometimes lapse into words that weren't quite Arabic, weren't quite any modern language. Dr. Khalil recorded these utterances, sent them to a linguist specializing in ancient Semitic languages. The response came back: possible Phoenician. The words resembled reconstructed Phoenician vocabulary for maritime terms, some matching fragments from ancient inscriptions. A 4-year-old speaking words from a language dead for over 2 millennia. The most profound moment came during Layla's second visit to the Tyre site. She stood at the edge of the ancient harbor, now mostly silted and filled, bearing little resemblance to its former glory. She was quiet for a long time. Then she began to sing. The melody was haunting, ancient, unfamiliar. The words were in that language that wasn't quite Arabic. Her parents had never heard her sing this song before. When she finished, tears were streaming down her face. "That's what we sang," she said, "when the ships came home, when father returned from trading voyages. I sang it to my own children. I sang it when I was old. I sang it my last day, watching the water." Dr. Khalil had the recording analyzed. The melodic structure resembled reconstructed ancient Middle Eastern musical patterns, predating Arabic musical traditions by centuries. No one could explain how Layla knew this song. Back home, the child's memories began to serve a different purpose. She spoke less of specific details, more of feelings, of what she learned, of what mattered. "I was lucky," Layla told her mother one evening. "In that life, I had love. I had family. I saw beauty. I lived long enough to understand things. That's what I remember most now. Not the harbor, or the purple, or the ships, but the feeling of being loved, of belonging somewhere, of a life that meant something." Nadia held her daughter, marveling at the wisdom in that small voice. Dr. Khalil's report noted something crucial. Layla showed no psychological distress from her memories, no confusion about her current identity. She understood she was Layla, daughter of Nadia and Karim, living in modern Beirut. She also understood she had been Zara, daughter of Hanno, living in ancient Tyre. Both were true. Both were her. The case attracted quiet attention in consciousness research circles. Not sensational headlines, but serious academic interest. Here was a child with verifiable knowledge of an ancient civilization, demonstrating apparent memories of a life lived over 2,000 years ago. Dr. Khalil presented the findings at a conference on consciousness and memory. She was careful. She presented facts. She acknowledged limitations. She proposed no definitive explanations, but she ended with a question that lingered in the air. If memory can survive without the brain that created it, what does that tell us about the nature of consciousness itself? Today, Layla is 6 years old. Her memories of ancient Tyre are fading, as they often do in these cases. The vivid details blur. The emotional intensity softens. But something remains. She still loves the sea with an intensity unusual for a young child. She still draws maps of harbors, though less detailed now, more dreamlike. She still knows, with quiet certainty, that this life is not her first. "I was someone before," she says simply, when asked. "Someone who loved the water, someone who had a good life. And now, I'm me. And that's good too." Her parents have found unexpected peace in their daughter's experiences. The fear and confusion of those early days have transformed into wonder, into questions, into a recognition that consciousness might be far stranger and more beautiful than anyone imagines. Dr. Khalil's documentation of Layla's case joins hundreds of others collected over decades by researchers studying children's past life memories. Not all cases are this detailed. Not all involve such ancient historical periods. But the patterns persist across cultures, across time, across thousands of families who've experienced the impossible. Children who know things they shouldn't know. Children who remember lives they never lived. Children who suggest that identity might not begin at birth, and memory might not be confined to a single lifetime. The question isn't whether we can prove reincarnation. The question is simpler and more profound. How do we explain what Layla knew? A 4-year-old child who mapped underwater archaeological structures she'd never seen, who described ancient dye-making processes with technical accuracy, who sang songs in a dead language, who recognized her own home from 2,000 years ago. Science offers no complete explanation. Memory shouldn't work this way. Knowledge shouldn't transfer across impossible spans of time. Consciousness shouldn't remember what the brain never learned. And yet, Layla remembered the harbor, the purple dye, the feeling of sunset over ancient waters, the love of a father dead for millennia, a life lived fully, ended peacefully, and somehow inexplicably carried forward into a new existence. The ancient Phoenicians believed the soul was eternal, traveling across the sea of time like their ships traveled across the Mediterranean. Perhaps Layla's memories are an echo of that ancient wisdom. Perhaps consciousness is more vast than we imagine. Perhaps death is not an ending, but a harbor from which we sail again. We don't know. We can only document. We can only wonder. And we can listen when a child tells us she remembers. If this story touched you, if it made you question what you thought you knew about memory, consciousness, and the nature of identity across time, you're not alone. Every week, we explore another mystery, another child, another impossible memory that challenges everything we understand about life, death, and the continuity of the soul. Subscribe to Before This Life. Join thousands of truth seekers in this journey. Because some questions are worth asking, some mysteries deserve our wonder, and some stories need to be heard. What's your theory about Layla's memories? Have you experienced unexplained knowledge or feelings of remembering places you've never been? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's explore this together. This has been Before This Life. Did this story touch your heart or pique your curiosity? If it made you rethink your views on memory and consciousness, you're not alone. Every week, we unveil another mystery, another child, another mind-boggling memory that challenges our understanding of existence. Join the Before This Life community by subscribing today. Because some questions deserve exploration, some mysteries warrant our attention, and some stories must be told. We'd love to hear your theories about these memories. Share your insights in the comments.